Welcome to Last Night in Basketball. I'm Jared Dubin. RJ Barrett is off to a hot start to his career in Toronto. But is he playing differently with the Raptors? That's what we're going to dig into today. It seems like something must have changed for Barrett since getting traded from New York to Toronto. He's averaging 20.2 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 3.6 assists per game. His shooting numbers are better than ever. And it all seems to coincide with his being traded from the Knicks to the Raptors as part of the OG Anunoby and Emmanuel Quickley trade. There are a lot of different theories as to why this might be happening since he arrived in Toronto, but I wanted to dig into the tape and the numbers and see what's really going on. The first thing that I think we can dismiss out of hand is the idea that he's getting better looks with improved spacing in Toronto. When you look at the tracking data on Second Spectrum, his shot quality is almost exactly the same with the Raptors as it was with the Knicks, and he's actually been more closely contested on his threes in Toronto than he was in New York. He's getting guarded by opposing teams in basically the exact same way that he was with the Knicks. They're not all that concerned with him shooting from deep. They're willing to let him fire away. He just happens to be making these shots right now, when in New York he would miss them more often than not. Given that these looks have been generally of the same quality, we shouldn't necessarily expect that he's going to keep hitting at 40% or better. One thing that definitely has changed is that Barrett's getting more of his shots in transition in comparison to the half court. And that's a big thing for him because he's more of a power player than he is a finesse guy who's going to be able to shake free of defenders. So being able to finish at the rim before the defense is set, when there aren't as many defenders between him and the basket, is so crucial for him. That's why he's always been a better finisher in transition than he has been in the half court. And this year, he's been so much better than ever before. Another major reason his shooting percentages are up is that he's finishing much better from the back half of the paint. I like to call it the floater range because that's the most common type of shot that you get from this area. He's finishing so much better with Toronto than he ever did in New York, and especially so much better than he was earlier this season with the Knicks. But again, his shot quality on these looks in the Second Spectrum tracking data, it's almost exactly the same as it was in New York. He's just wildly outperforming expectations right now. These looks aren't any better than the ones he was getting in New York. In fact, he's still taking pretty much the same kind of shots, and he's still missing the same kind of shots he was in New York too. All of this type of stuff will look extremely familiar to Knicks fans who saw him try to finish over, around, and through different kinds of bodies at the basket more than he was capable of doing. Another theory is that he's got to be driving to the rim more often. That's always been his best skill, getting downhill, attacking the basket, and finishing with force. The problem with that is that it's not true. He's driving less often than he did in New York. His field goal percentage is better, but the shot quality is the same, the contest rate is the same. He's just making the shots, but not always. He still gets tunnel vision on some of his drives, and he forces things that aren't there. And he especially tries to force finishes over bigger defenders at the rim that he shouldn't be trying to finish over. That gets him into trouble sometimes. One area that he does seem to have shown some improvement in Toronto is with his awareness in transition. He's doing a better job of spotting open teammates on the perimeter when he's attacking the lane on the break, which again is the best thing that he does in transition. But he doesn't always do it. Sometimes he still gets that tunnel vision and he doesn't spot one of his teammates wide open at the arc, and instead, he tries to throw a much more difficult pass that results in a turnover. Another thing that seemingly changes is that the Raptors have him moving around off the ball more often. He's shooting more on off-ball cuts than he ever did when he was with the Knicks, and the Raptors seemingly want to get him on the move, dribble handoffs, pin down screens from the corner. They want to get him on the move to give him a head start so he can get to the basket, but he's also doing a good job of reading the play and figuring out where to go when his teammate is on the drive so he can take advantage of openings in the defense. Every single part of this was on display during the Raptors game on Thursday night against the Bulls, both the good and the bad. Barrett was able to beat his man to the rim, get himself a layup through contact. He was able to get out on the break, use his strength to get himself to his spot, finish through contact, and get himself an and one. He also did a good job of finding his teammates when he got out in transition. He created transition layups for Emmanuel Quickley and Bruce Brown, And later in the game, when the Bulls loaded up on the transition drive and sent a bunch of their defenders packing into the paint, he was able to find Chris Boucher on the wing for a three. But again, just like in New York, the Bulls weren't all that worried about Barrett shooting away from three. He went 1 for 6 on deep shots. None of them were all that heavily contested. And he still got a little bit of that tunnel vision when he attacked the rim on drives. So yes, Barrett's numbers are better so far in Toronto than they were earlier this season with the Knicks. And yes, the Raptors are trying some things a little bit differently. But for the most part, RJ is playing pretty much the same way. He's getting pretty much the same looks. It's just that right now, he's making them. And that happens to coincide with the timing of the trade. If he were driving to the rim more often or getting better, less contested shots, it would be easier to buy into what's happening right now. But that's just not the case. Once again, this has been Last Night in Basketball. I'm Jared Dubin. Head on over to lastnightinbasketball.com and subscribe today.